Hey, hey, Infantinis.
Hello.
Welcome to our first Ask Us Anything question series.
Yes.
Session.
Guided session.
Session, series, something. I don't know what we're doing.
Yes. Well, the idea behind it was that this is what we will be doing in our guidance program, is that the idea is that you can ask us any question that you are a little bit stuck on, you need some clarity on, you just want some guidance around. And it's not necessarily about us giving you the answer either. It's like you have the answers inside of you, but you probably just can't see them right now because you get stuck in your head a bit. So the idea is you can ask us anything, and we can try and point you in the right direction and maybe give you some insights that will start to reveal those answers for yourself.
Yeah, definitely asking you the right questions and even doing a bit of an intuitive read.
Yes,
we like doing that. So it is a bit of a prelude to our we're calling it a guidance program. It's like a coaching program for 12 months, which we'll be launching shortly.
Yes.
So, but if you are interested, you can come across right now, actually, if you want to come to the infinite.me, living it now.
Yes.
That's what it's all about. Today, who knows whether anyone will show up and ask us any questions, but I guess to kick off, because we'll actually sort of be ahead of people actually seeing this live on Facebook or YouTube. So while we're waiting, Mandy, you were talking to someone, and she had a question.
Yes. So I was talking to my sister-in-law, Lauren, or Nat's, or our sister-in-law, Lauren, and she couldn't make it on live today, so I said that I could ask the question for her. So just to give you a little bit of background, so my brother and her are looking to move houses right now. It's a little bit more probably Lauren's decision, like to kind of more the feeling behind wanting to move right now. They put the house on the market about a year ago, took it back off again. So there's been a lot of uncertainty around, is this the right move to move houses? And so got two young kids. Do you uproot the kids, move them to a new location? It's not ridiculously far from where they are now, but it will mean change, obviously, in lifestyle. That probably the daycare they might go to, or the parks they visit, and all those kind of things. The school, I think the school will stay the same, not sure, but there is a lot of uncertainty. The kids are a little bit attached to the house. They sort of don't really understand what a move is, what that means. Lauren has had some uncertainty herself around knowing whether this is the right move, and so her question was around, am I just being selfish, with this move? Like, this is coming up for her a lot, this idea that, am I making this all about me? I seem to be putting, maybe going to be putting everyone else through a whole bunch of trauma for no reason, sort of thing. That's where her thinking's kind of going. And then on the flip side of that, my brother is kind of, when he gets into a bit of a fearful state around, the uncertainty around the move, about, are we making the right choice? The area we're moving to, we'll probably have to spend more money to live in. Are we going to get as good of a place? All these sort of questions that come up, which are all quite valid concerns. But then that flips into fear, which then gets projected back onto Lauren as like, oh, well, you're the one that wants to move. And so it's almost like, if this goes wrong, then it's going to be your fault type feeling type thing that comes up, which is, again, kind of a natural sort of thing that happens when we go into fear. We kind of project it usually outwards. So a question was around getting some clarity around being selfish versus knowing what you truly want to do, like where that your truth sits on a decision, if you like. Yes. So I had, I was messaging with her backwards and forwards a little bit about this the other night, and my feeling around it was that, I've had the benefit of having some conversations with her about this anyway, around this whole move thing. There is some background to her wanting to move, so it is definitely around a whole lifestyle shift, like looking at a whole bunch of areas about feeling better about yourself, feeling better about your life, about your environment that's around you, feeling more inspired by your environment and your life. So that this is going to come with a bunch of other shifts, if you like, too. So sort of mental shifts and approaches to, getting out and doing more stuff that you enjoy doing in life, as well as changing your environment to kind of shift up your energy a bit too. And I guess that's where her question was coming in around, is, am I just escaping, the feelings, maybe this dissatisfaction I've got with certain areas of my life, is this an escape rather than this being truly what I want to do? So, and that's probably a pretty common question I think we can ask ourselves sometimes when we want to embark on a big decision, is like, am I just doing this because I'm seeking that next shiny object thing, or is this actually truly what I want to do at the end of the day? Is it worth going through upheaval and shift and changes that come with any, not even just moving house, but any big change? It comes with a period of newness, like you've got to adjust to that new stuff, and it's like, is it worth going through that? That's where the uncertainty can come in.
Yeah, it's interesting when you were asking the question and like going through what she's been going through, sort of thing. It's like, if you're meeting with a lot of resistance, then my question was, is that just a sign that it's not true for you, and there is some degree of not necessarily even running away, but sort of like, if you've got all these things that you think something new is going to give you, it's like, why can't you have those things now? What's stopping you from starting a new lifestyle and running or whatever you wanted to do in your lifestyle, sort of thing? Like, why are you holding back from doing that now? Your circumstances shouldn't dictate any of that. So if she could start doing those things now, then does that satisfy that urge to move? And so whether there's an agenda there, like, I guess that's where it sort of comes down to, is actually asking that question of like, is there an agenda to move above and beyond, it'd be nice to move type thing? And
that is the question that she has been asking herself too, is about having some self-awareness around all this too, around, am I doing this as a avoidance strategy of looking at the other things that are going on in my life? Feeling that this is the answer to it all and it's going to shift everything around, and the other things are just going to fall away.
I think it's interesting, particularly when you're getting resistance from others around you about this, and kids will be a perfect reflection of that, because they really don't have a lot of ego around it. It's just like whatever's coming to them, sort of thing. Like, you could see possibly our brother having a bit of an agenda, sort of thing, of like, like, I'm really busy at work, I don't want to move, blah blah blah. And so you could sort of manipulate and influence a little, whereas kids are pretty much a plain reflection of what's going on. So in some ways it's sort of interesting to observe what's going on for them. But it's, I sort of do wonder, like, if you are seeing a lot of resistance around you towards something, is there that point of like, this maybe isn't the right move type thing? And that's what you're seeing. So your inner self basically is reflecting, obviously everybody, we have the law of reflection. So anything that you see outside of you is a pure reflection of your consciousness, even if you can't see it yourself. And so oftentimes that resistance that's coming up in the outside world actually is reflecting something that's on the inside.
Definitely.
Which might be more true for you.
And I think that can even go into another area too, because I think this is where that path of self-awareness, kind of, the deeper you go into it, this is where you can start to get your own answers for yourself. That's truly what it's all about, is that knowing yourself on such a deep level that you can start to determine that for yourself. You don't need the outside guidance. So it can look like, showing up as resistance, definitely. And then that can then cause you to ponder, like, is this the right move then? Because there is a lot of resistance on the outside. Am I being true with my intentions behind this? Is this a distraction? Is this an avoidance strategy? All those type of things. And then you could also look at the question I sort of posed to her was the fact that you're uncertain about your decision. It's going to get reflected by the outside world as well. So it may be that a move is the right move. It gets a bit confusing, but we're talking about moving house. So it could be that is definitely the right decision for her. But because you're so uncertain, you're flip-flopping all the time, you're in your head constantly about what to do. Am I making the right move? Am I doing this? And you sort of follow all those scenarios, like, what if this happens? What if that happens? And you start going down those lines. There's no certainty in any of that. So the outside world has to reflect your uncertainty. It's just how it works. So, therefore it shows up as our brother Daniel kind of going, oh, I'm not sure about this move. What about this? What about that? And I said, to me, that also feels like it's truly a reflection of you being really uncertain about whether you're making the right choice for you. And I was sort of suggesting to her about what we talk about here at the Infinite Me, about the whole idea about giving space to your emotions that are coming up, and actually giving yourself some quiet time, sitting out in nature with no distractions, and truly tapping into what's true for you. So in this case, not worrying about what the kid's saying, not worrying about what your partner's saying. What do you want? Like, in your heart of hearts, when you're really honest with yourself and you get out of your head, really tapping into, like, and your body will tell you what the right move is to do, what the right decision is, but you have to create the space. Like, you can't do it when you're in your head. It's just impossible. So you do have to sit in quiet space and bring yourself into a neutral place as you can. So you're not in your head, you're really just connecting with your breathing, connecting in with like nature around you, and being in that really neutral space. And then asking yourself that question about, is this the right decision for me? And then seeing what comes up for you, like being really curious about the thoughts, not being attached to an outcome, not judging what comes up. You might get some head chatter that comes up, that's going to happen, but then really feeling into that and seeing what's actually true for you. And it might take a few times of doing this too. You may not get your answer in the first 5 minutes. You probably won't if you're really in your head about something as well. But there is that process of giving space. It's really hard to make a decision about something when you've got all these outside voices as well as your internal voice telling you right or wrong what you should do. Then you've got opinions of parents, and you get all different things that will come into the picture, and it's really hard to hear your truth in that.
It's about the worst thing you do is ask everybody's opinion on what you should do in any circumstance.
You get very varied responses there.
And it sort of brings me back to the point that decisions are not made at the human level. They're made at the infinite level, the universal level. So by Lauren actually giving this space and just allowing the silence for a while, sort of thing, that means that the decision, because she might be flip-flopping right now with the uncertainty, because maybe the decision actually hasn't already been made at the infinite level. There might be still other things that need to fall into place at that, universal unseen level before that solution or that decision becomes really solid. Because I feel, in my own experience, is like, if I am flip-flopping about something, then either I haven't given enough space to really actually just tune into what's the answer right now, which is, it's going to be intuited. And so it will drop into your awareness when you give it enough space, or it actually hasn't been decided yet. And that's why you feels like you're flip-flopping, and you can go either way. And you justify it by saying, I'm in my head and I can see the pros and cons to everything. But in actual fact, the decision actually has not even been made at the universal level at that point. And so there's other things that need to line up. So again, just give it space, give it time as well in that at that stage.
Until it feels more certain.
Until you'll know when you know. And if you don't know right now, then maybe you're not meant to know right now.
It's true. But sometimes you just get an inkling of something in your awareness, but it hasn't fully landed yet, like what you're saying. So you might just have an awareness of like, oh, this doesn't feel kind of quite right, or I'm feeling like making a shift in this direction in maybe my health or something. You just get this feeling, but you don't actually quite know the direction yet to take, because it hasn't fully landed. But then you do go into your head and you try and figure it out. You try and force the decision sometimes too. So that definitely can happen. And the other thing that this is coming to me, that can happen as well, and this is where you have to do your own self-reflection. Like Nat and I can kind of, give some guidance around asking particular questions, but you do have to sit with things yourself and see where they come up. But the other thing that happens a lot of the time is what Nat's talking about, this, the decision is made at the infinite level, like the aspect of us that's the truth, that we're all part of we're all infinite right now, so that consciousness that we're all connected to, the decision is made at that level, and we feel it as a feeling in our body. It's just a knowingness of like, oh, that's the thing I want to do. That's the direction I'm going. That's a decision I'm making. But then it can very, very quickly fall into, we go into our head straight away oftentimes. So we sort of almost dismiss that sort of certain feeling that we get. So as it does come through your body as a feeling, it's an absolute certainty in that moment. it's already done. It's inevitable if we keep following through with the actions, but we often then flip into exactly what's happening here with that idea of try to figure it out with our head. And we get stuck in the stories that come up around it and what this person's saying and what might happen down the line here. And we project outcomes that might not even happen, which is a big thing around anxiety. That's how anxiety comes up, is we project into the future of what we think is going to happen, and then we live as if that's what's happening. But then that's where uncertainty starts to creep in. And as humans, we hate uncertainty. Like we want certainty. So that's why we'll stay in, uncomfortable situations for long periods of time, because they're comfortable, because we just hate the unknown. We don't know what's beyond that situation. So yes, the feeling comes through and it's an absolute certainty, but then we flip into uncertainty straight away. And sometimes that's when we go into the strategies and the uncertainty and the doubt. And so I guess that's the other point to sit with too, is when you sit in silence and you give this space, you'll actually be able to feel then if that decision has actually been made, like what Nat's saying, maybe it hasn't actually been decided yet at that level and you need more information, you need more time, you need more space. Or it has been decided, but you've gone straight into your head about it and you're not not using that decision as your guidance for your next action steps, so that your action steps then are 100% aligned with that decision that's already been made. So if you start flipping into the uncertainty straight away, then your actions are completely out of alignment with the feeling that's coming through with you. And that's why we don't get the results that, we think we're going to get sometimes too. That we're not listening to our truth. So we have that moment of truth and then we kind of go, oh, but I might go and do this, or I might try that, or this worked for me before. And then we don't get what we're hoping is going to happen. And then we go, oh, I'm confused. And it's just like, are you confused, or you've just kind of not listened to the voice inside, so it's, it can be easy distraction method.
Yeah, definitely. We've got Jenny watching at the moment. I just asked her if she would like to ask us anything about her situation right now. She did write into the group just previously. Perhaps we could just address some of the general stuff that came up from her. I think I can find it. So just I won't go into read the whole thing because it's quite long. But basically just literally drowning in crap. So she's been doing lots of positive thinking over the years, thinking that was the right thing to do, and now has ended up in a worse place than ever. Stayed in a dead relationship for a lot longer than she feels she should have right now. Worked in the business quite a bit without financial compensation, and is now being accused of, stealing and doing different things from her now ex-partner.
So going through the divorce proceedings now, which brings up all the crap. Yep.
Yeah. And she's just generally, there's other things happening with the children and just feeling really anxious. Can't even eat or drink water most days. And basically at a wit's end, understandably, when you're going through all that. That sounds pretty full on. So,
definitely got the sense of overwhelm when I read the general energy that I felt too. It's just there's so much happening. I don't really know what to do. Almost in that freeze mode right now. It's just like can't eat, can't drink, can't function type mode.
Yeah. It definitely, when you've got so much going on in your life and so much drama and you just feel like you're putting spot fires out constantly everywhere you turn is another spot fire. It can seem really overwhelming. Absolutely. And it's so hard at that point to clear the space enough to actually even get any clarity whatsoever. Like you do feel like you're drowning, literally.
Yeah. You're at the mercy of what's happening to you outside of you.
Yes. I'm just going to take that banner off the screen. Yeah, definitely. I can totally empathize with where you're at. And there's a lot to what you're talking about here. And I get there's some hard questions to ask yourself, perhaps, and now may not be the time to answer these, but it is asking yourself, perhaps, how addicted to the drama are you of different things? The ego loves drama, and it's not you doing it as the person, Jenny. It's actually your ego, and the ego is that collective essence that we all tap into type thing. And the ego loves drama because it keeps it going all the time. So we love the stories, we love the drama, we get involved in our own stuff. When it's not our own stuff, we get involved in somebody else's stuff. If it's not somebody else's stuff, we're watching the TV and getting involved in the news. Like, how many people watch the news and suddenly go, oh, I can't believe this person's doing this, that, and the other. And it's like, it's got nothing to do with you. It's not even your story. Don't worry about it. It's this constant need, because it makes us feel strangely fulfilled and strangely significant, and there's a degree of importance or something that comes with that. And
the ego is always looking for significance. That's what it is. Because the ego doesn't exist in consciousness. Like, well, it is. It's not. Like it's a creation of consciousness, but at the end of the day, it doesn't actually exist. It's part of our human story. That's part of our creation. That we've come up with. So it's not a real thing. At the end of the day, just like we're not real as humans at the ultimate level, but it's looking for significance. It can only exist in that duality space. It can't exist in neutrality, in total infinite consciousness. So its significance comes from drama. It's got to get fuel from somewhere.
Yes. But what happens then in wanting the drama is that we only end up looking at the negative stuff and not the positive stuff. So one way you can start to ease the mind a little bit and bring yourself back into balance, to get a little bit of relief, because at the moment all you're looking for is relief.
Yeah.
So what might help is starting to ask yourself the questions of, how is it supporting you right now? Now, this is going to be a really hard question to answer, particularly when you start looking at all the different parts of the story that are going on. But it does start to bring you some relief when you can actually stay with that question and start finding the balancing thing. Because at the end of the day, in the universe, in quantum physics, so everything that we see around us basically is that it's positive and negative together. You don't have one without the other. It's impossible. So you can't split the two.
Yes.
So, but the problem is the mind gravitates towards the negative because it's going against our values and what's important to us. We call it negative. When something supports our values and we really like it, then we call it positive. Everyone's doing this. So what happens is that we only choose to see one side of it. So we either put it up on a pedestal and go, oh, this is the best thing ever. Like when you have a new relationship, it's the best relationship ever.
Yeah.
Or you make it really negative. When you're breaking up with your partner, it's the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
So, but we focus so hard on the negative stuff that we refuse to see the positive stuff. We refuse to see that there might be any support or positive stuff out of that situation. And if we, by purposely going in and asking, how is it supporting you right now, these different things that are playing out, then you start to bring the mind back into balance again. When you're back into balance, that's when you find that sense of relief.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely one exercise you can be doing. And to write it down actually will be probably the best thing you can do. You can sit there doing it mentally, but to actually sit there and write down 20 ways that your ex right now is supporting you by doing what he's doing, not changing, doing what he is doing right now. And you'll fight it. Definitely you'll fight it. Like Mandy and I have worked with people through this process for years, and everyone fights it because the mind has not thought about going to that other side of it yet.
We collect evidence to support our point of view. So if our point of view is negative, then we collect all this evidence around us. Look, see, this thing's happening. Yep, now this is happening. And then you get on that momentum slide of you start creating that stuff around you then, because that's where your energy is going. That's where your focus is going. And you start to, as I said, create that momentum of other stuff. It looks like everything starts falling apart then, because that's where your energy, you kind of basically going, okay, well, this is what I'm wanting right now. This is what I believe to be true. And because you're the ultimate creator of your life, okay, that's what you're going to create. Like, it's kind of as that as well. And you might kind of go, well, I don't want that shit. Why would I be, creating that? Like, I don't want it. Because it's like, but it's not a personal thing. Like, we take it personal, like that, oh, I'm creating drama. No, that can't be the case. But it's just like, no, it's actually just the way the universe works. Like, it's not a personal thing. It's not to make you feel worse about yourself, or it's none of that. It's just physics, as Nats said, it's that balancing out of the positive and the negative. It's going to happen in some way, shape, or form. So if it takes your whole world to fall apart for you to kind of realize the truth of who you are and that you're the creator of it all, then maybe that's what's going to happen from the outside, from that ultimate level. Maybe that's what's got to happen for you to realize the connection of who you truly are to yourself, and that you have the ultimate power over your life. It's not outside of you. It's not in your circumstances. It's not in how you feel, how somebody else can make you feel, what they say. It's about how you feel about yourself, like, and your, infinite capacities that are truly who you are, which is probably why you're going down the path of positive thinking, because it feels true. The whole truth of I'm an infinite being, I have true creative power. And so we often embark on that whole positive thinking because it's in alignment with that. It's 100% in alignment with that way of feeling. But we take it to the extreme of not acknowledging any of the emotions that come up that are potentially negative, or maybe giving you some warning signs. So I think you actually said in your commentary about you'd stayed in the relationship for 4 years longer because you felt for him. So that's kind of, to me, already indicating that you kind of knew it wasn't true for you to stay, and you did. So you've kind of sacrificed your truth, hoping that it would shift around. But on some level, you knew that's not what you wanted to do. Yeah. So you've kind of put yourself into, I'm not going to say you've created it purposely, like it
not
doesn't
from
work.
a human level, like you wouldn't have known about this. Like, and I think this is a really important point, is that all this is happening on an infinite level. It's not happening you directly. So it's
no, it's a very important point to make, because it can kind of sound like, oh, like you're telling me that I chose this for myself. It's like, no, not at the human level, like not from the mind that we kind of think. We keep thinking that we're separate and like it's all happening to us and it's all personal. And it's like, no, from that infinite consciousness perspective of who you truly are, you somehow have put this into your story. If we're the creator of everything that happens to us, which is the ultimate truth, like then somehow you've put this into your storyline for some reason. So you've decided to stay in the relationship for longer, knowing it wasn't the truth, and now there's consequences to that choice. And it doesn't mean that you can't shift them, but you have to bring the attention back to the truth again of like that I am the ultimate creator, so I can shift this around now. I'm not at the victim of I'm not at the mercy of what's happening to me outside of me. It looks like there's a whole bunch of crap going on right now. Granted, what you've shared, like it looks like that. And it's really easy to get caught in that drama when it's happening so much like that and there's so much going on. The more you can create space for yourself and connecting back into who you truly are, acknowledging those emotions that are coming up. So you might just feel completely frustrated right now, or you might feel completely let down.
Well, she's saying disappointed.
Disappointed, okay. Yeah. So really sitting with that emotion of disappointment. Like, do you actually let yourself fully feel the emotion of disappointment, not try to make it go away? A lot of time positive thinking is to avoid looking at the shadow stuff that comes up as if that's the answer, and it's like it's not the answer. That shadow stuff is going to pop out somewhere when you're least expecting, and it'll probably pull the rug out from under you, which maybe is what's happening right now. It's that kind of idea that if we don't address it, it doesn't go away. It's still there. But it's not the boogeyman like that it's kind of made out to be. It's like the more we can just sit with the emotion and actually acknowledge it and feel it in our body, it passes through and it goes, like, and it dissolves out of our body, and the new awareness starts to open up, and then other potentials start to come into the picture. So maybe you do have to sit with, what am I really disappointed with right now, and actually write out a whole list of things that you thought were going to happen, and you might realize that there's a whole bunch of expectations there, underline, which is what the ego loves to do, put expectations on how we think something is going to unfold, what we're going to get out of it, what we thought that person's going to provide for us, what I don't know, how we were going to feel like once all these things were ticked off in the box and it was going this way. Like, they're all expectations that can't be met by the outside world. They have to come from inside of us. And maybe this situation is showing that for you, is this like, you're the only source of your true happiness at the end of the day. It has to come from you. And when it comes from you and you can tune into that space of who you truly are, then the outside world can shift to match that. So I don't know, I think for me, if I was in your situation right now, I would be building in the space right now to connect into those deep feelings coming up, really connecting back into the truth of who I am, that I can shift this from the outside, like be the eye of the storm, be everything else moves around you, and you're the eye of the storm. You're the creator. You're the one that's in control of it all. And I don't mean control from the ego level of like it's going to happen the way I think it should happen, but from that infinite level that I am the creator, I'm the author of this story, so I can shift the story now too, by being true to my energy of who I truly am and staying in that space and coming from that space, not looking to win fights, not looking to be right, not looking to not getting really fearful around the money aspect, although that might be playing out for you, about like knowing that you're being taken care of on a bigger level. It's not about the money on the outside world either, but you might find things start to shift when you can be more in your center. Because at the moment, it just feels like you'd be oscillating around, like based on what's happening, based on what your husband says, based on, what's coming up. He wants more money than what, maybe is granted and things like that. And so you react to those things, and it's really easy to get drawn into those arguments. But really pulling yourself up and having that awareness around, not responding to things straight away. Like if say an email comes in, not feeling don't go with your first ego reaction with, oh crap, write this back, and sit with it for a bit and kind of go, wow, where's that coming from? What's he showing me right now? What emotion's coming up for me, what's being triggered within me? Can I give that emotion some space for a little bit and sit with it and see what's coming up without all the stories around it, without why that emotion's coming up or who's contributed to that emotion? I talked a lot about this in that video yesterday about the positive thinking, about how to go through this process. So if you watch that video, I went a bit more deeper into that process of sitting with the emotions and what that looks like. And you might need to keep doing this too. It's not a one-time fixes everything. Our mind wants a fixable solution, and it's not that's never the case. So I think the other thing I just wanted to pick up on what you said, Nat, too, is that this if we are infinite consciousness, at the bigger picture scale, then everything is happening for you. It's all being placed into your storyline for some reason. So you're not the victim of anything, although it can feel like that. And we can definitely fall into that role of playing the victim, but it's more that question, like what Nat's saying, writing out, how is this actually happening for me right now? How is this serving me? Everything that's going on right now, what am I actually getting out of this experience right now? Because it is happening for something, for you to see something, for you to wake up to something, for you to take a stand for something, for you to reconnect to yourself, whatever, it's probably all of the above. But really own that for yourself about what's showing up, and then see what the next step for you shows up.
Yeah, I think when everything falls apart, and I've had 2 instances in my life where everything fell apart.
Yeah, I've had a couple too.
Absolute destruction on every level. Finances, relationship, career, you name it. There were the times where when you go through them are obviously the most transformative. That's why they come. And they come with such force. With so much stuff to take care of, with everything falling away, that you literally are standing there going, I've got fucking nothing left other than the breath that is going in and out of me right now. And I've reached that many, many times of going, the only thing I have left is my breath. That's it.
And sometimes you might even want to end that too, just like, what's the point?
And it does get to that stage of wanting to end that as well. And I've definitely been there as well. So, but it's interesting when you do get to that stage, whether you would label it as suicidal or it just feels like it's heading in that direction almost. And, often, or just about everybody that does get to that suicidal point says, what's the point of it all? That's the final straw of like, why the fuck am I even doing this? And I think that is such an important breaking point for people and for all of us. Because to me, it's not a desire for suicide.
No.
It's an ego side. So your ego, part of you, your identity is dying in that moment. So what's happening for you right now, why it feels like it's completely falling apart and why it's also shit, is that part of your identity is falling apart. So what you identified with as in terms of being a partner, of being this person, of being this sort of person.
Being a business owner, being
all those things that you were, then are now being stripped away, going, actually, not any of those things. There were roles that you played, definitely, in this game, but they're not actually who you are. So that's nearly always the reason why everything gets stripped away at once. And just about everybody that's been on this consciousness journey has experienced this, of massive ripping away of everything at once. And it's like to literally stand there with just your breath left and go, I'm still alive and I'm still me. And so me actually isn't my human self. Me is what looks out through the eyes, the infinite that looks out through the eyes.
Yeah.
So it is getting to that, because when you get to that point, you have to surrender. You've got to give everything up. And the surrender is the opening. You know, like when you finally surrender, you're open to what is, rather than what you have wanted it to be, expected it to be, thought it was what was.
Yeah,
all those things
you put on everything.
Yeah.
You get to see, if you go down this line of surrendering, like it's you can stay in the story too, like it definitely that's a choice. You get to see but all the stuff that you've set up for yourself. You're like, wow, like kind of look what I've set up here. Like I thought that was going to happen if I did this. I thought, you know, this was going to unfold differently if I just did that thing. If I stayed, like I thought I was going to shift this around. Like it's all the things that you kind of have put into the storyline for yourself, and you get to see the power that you've put into all of that stuff too, and realize at the end of the day, like as Nat said, like it's just you left there with your breath. So that can't be changed. Like you hear stories like I'm just thinking of like Nelson Mandela was popping into my head, where he was like incarcerated for 30 years, but they couldn't break him. Like they could break his body and they could break his, you know, belief in, you know, in freedom and all those kind of things, but he was always him. Like he stayed true to, he knew that they could not break who he was. Even if they killed him, it didn't change it. Like he was still him at the conscious, you know, that infinite consciousness level. And it is that aspect too, is like life could throw a whole bunch of shit at you, but you're still you at the core of it. Like even if everything gets stripped away, you're still you. And that's maybe, I know for me, when I've had those life sort of falling apart type moments as well, that I was really awakened to how disconnected from myself I actually was. And that's why it was happening, was that I had to reconnect into that knowingness of who I truly was. I put so much power into everything else. And it was really unconscious too, because I was on the spiritual path. Like it's kind of like, how did this happen? Got almost blindsided by stuff. You can convince yourself that because you're doing spiritual work, whatever that looks like. This is why Nat and I started the Infinite Me, really, is because there's so much bullshit that goes on in the spiritual industry. So much, it's not the deeper truth. It's not always like consciously that we're being told the wrong thing. I don't mean that at all, but there's a deeper truth that we're not kind of shown. And but I sort of felt like I'm doing all the things, I'm doing all the courses, I'm doing all the stuff, and I'm still got blindsided. Like it's just like, how the fuck did that happen? Like it's kind of but I had to really be honest with myself, and it's like, I'm still putting the power outside of me. I'm still not believing that I'm an infinite consciousness. I'm still really thinking I'm separate and buying my ego stories all the time, and really giving my power away constantly. And that's why everything had to fall apart for me, so that I could really tune back into who I truly was, what truly lit me up in the world, what is the thing that I really love to do. All those type of questions had to explore, and that was a journey that took months. But it shifted things almost instantly because I shifted in terms of just starting to unfold and ripple out sort of thing. So you can actually make quite a what's the word, you can start to see some shifts instantaneously when you shift your energy and your perspective and the way and the place that you come from. It may take a while for those circumstances outside of you to shift too, and it may not still end up how you think it should, you know, but that's again a judgment as well, that we think that things have got to unfold. But I guarantee you in the long run, this will be the best thing that will have ever happened to you, because you're so much more certain on who you truly are and what you're about in life and what you stand for.
You won't put up with anymore. And this is where we put our boundaries up. When somebody really crosses our boundaries, suddenly we find boundaries. And sometimes we just need to be doing that. So, you know, you've sort of said here, didn't feel like a partner for a long time, was not included in the business except to do the work, not allowed to make decisions and not listened to. I bet you won't do that again.
Yeah.
It's sometimes we need these wake-up calls because we're not listening. Just as Mandy said, like if you've stayed with him for 4 years, then there would have been signs all the way along those 4 years to get out. And unfortunately, not listening to that, we call this the feather brick truck. So we have a little tickle from the feather, and it's there. If we pay enough attention, it's there, and we notice it, and we go, oops, I'm going to make a shift.
That
We
little
don't.
feeling, oh, maybe I should leave. I'm not that happy.
Yeah, the little niggles
Yeah.
that go away, and then we get the brick. When we don't listen to the feather, we get the brick. Suddenly it's like, bang, did you get
A
it?
little bit
Now,
more painful. Yeah.
no, I didn't get it. Okay, well, expect the Mack truck to come along because that's what's happening next. So unfortunately, this is the way it works, but it does work this way. Like, it's like the signs are always there, but then this gets us to tune into our intuition a lot more. So when all's said and done, and you can move through this whole scenario, our intuition is always there talking to us, but we don't listen to it. We're so set on a path about how we're going to do stuff with our expectations, and it's going to be this way and it's going to be that way, and I'm going to manipulate it to make it such and such. Or we get so caught in somebody else's drama, which maybe is what happened in this case for you, is that we get caught in such a story and we get so lost in that story that we just lose all sense of ourselves.
Yes.
And the intuition's still there. The feather brick truck is still there going, hi, I'm here. When are you going to listen to me? This is not true for you, this path.
Yeah.
Not getting it. And everyone's doing this, so don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But it's sort of like at some point, it does all break apart because it has to. That's the Mack truck.
Yeah.
Eventually the Mack truck's going to come. And eventually then you go, holy shit, how did that just all happen? Like Mandy just said, how did that just happen? Same thing happened to me, like a total blindsided twice.
Yeah.
Going, and I was on the consciousness path for a long time, going, how the fuck did that happen? But when I go back and I have a look at all the signs that were there, I was like, shit, it's been there for years, like these bloody signs. How come I didn't see these things?
Yes.
But when it's so, everybody's doing this because when you're so far in a story, you can't see it.
Yeah.
That's why we have, counselors and, people to help us out type thing, coaching programs and stuff like this. Like why we want to do the coaching program is for this very reason, because when you're in a story, it doesn't mean that you're not conscious. It means that you're in your story and you can't see it. There's no reflection point. So you need someone on the outside who's not part of that story to go, hey, are you actually seeing what you're doing here? Like, this is a big red flag here you can look at if you want.
And I think the key to that too, having somebody outside of you too, is they have to be coming from a neutral, non-judgmental space, not somebody that's on your side that's kind of going, oh yeah, you're making the right decision. You stick it to him, that's, it's helpful to a degree sometimes to just get you out of your funk, like definitely. So sometimes it definitely serves, but I'm talking about somebody or something, somewhere you can go outside of that. They can give you a really non-judgmental viewpoint on what's going on and reflect stuff back to you, give you things to ponder, so that you can kind of make your own decision. It's not about somebody influencing your decision either, of which way you go or what to do either. And that's exactly why we're starting the guidance program, for that very reason, to be that neutral space so that you can hear your own, what's true for you at the end of the day.
Yeah, she just said true, didn't listen for 13 and a half years. That showed me clearly. But my ego said, my love will make him better in relationships.
Yeah, it's pretty
common. You would not be the first person to do that. And you won't be the last. You will not be the last. This is a thing we do. Like, we believe that we can change people in relationships. And the only thing we've got in a relationship, that it's interesting to, from a conscious perspective, when you enter into a relationship as an infinite whole being who doesn't need anything from a relationship, but you choose to be with that person because you enjoy their company, vastly different to going into a relationship and needing a whole bunch of stuff from that person.
Codependent,
And part of that can be wanting to change that person because that makes you feel better, makes you feel significant, makes you, again, feeding all the ego bullshit stuff. That's part of it. So it really does come down to, at this point, when you're having, you've now split up type thing, before entering into any other relationship, which might be the furthest thing from your mind right now, I get that. But it goes for all of us. Entering into a relationship, needing a whole bunch of things, guarantee is going to break up eventually anyway, but also will be really quite miserable for most of the time because you end up manipulating each other to get your needs met. And that's all it is. It's just a big game of manipulation to try and do that stuff. I'm not saying there's not love there. I'm not going to that stage, but definitely there can be a whole bunch of love there. But there are a lot of games that get played at that level, and the more unconscious you are, the more games will get played. But as you rise in awakening and realizing who you are, that person can't actually give you anything more than what you already are, because you're already infinite. So you are everything.
You already love. You already don't need the love from
You
somebody else.
don't need all that stuff from anyone else, and so you just do it because it's fun to be with that person, and that is a really different relationship to have. A very different relationship. So yeah, initially thinking
Didn't think
anything needed changing. Yeah, I mean, if you did, you probably wouldn't have got into the relationship, I guess. Like, it's not until, I mean, it's the honeymoon phase, isn't it? We all fall for type thing. We get into a relationship, everything's fantastic. The person's got 2 eyes and 2 arms and 2 legs, just like us. We must be meant to be soulmates. But then we realize that, yeah, there's a whole bunch of differences that still sit there as well. And I was like, oh, shit, I didn't see that in that person until I spent more time with them. Now it's actually quite different to what I thought it was.
And sometimes those moments, it can be an awakening if we're tuned into the intuition that, oh, this is a sign, this is not the person. But it also can be sometimes where your ego gets a hold of things and you start to have an agenda behind something as well too. So it may be that there's actually nothing actually wrong with that person, but our ego kind of magnifies those things and kind of makes them into a bigger deal than what they actually are. And then we start to create stories around that as well. So we can kind of, I don't know, I'm trying to pick thinking something really innocuous, but okay, maybe your partner is really messy and leaves stuff around the place all the time. And after a while, you're kind of like, oh, okay, this didn't used to bother me, but now it's starting to bother me. Okay, and then you start to focus on it more. It's like, oh, they're doing it again. Then they lose something really important, like some document that you really needed, and because they're messy, it's somehow gone missing. And then it starts to like, right, there it is again. So you start to collect all these like evidence that you're right with the way you're thinking about it, and then you start to really create a whole identity around that person, and they can't show up any differently when you're in that space. When you're coming from that judgment space, they can't show up different because that's what the energy agreement has become between them. And it's like half the time it's almost like the stuff they start to do gets blown out of proportion in terms of the like the effect that it has on you. And you start to kind of then change your behavior based on that. And then it becomes like it's just the 2 egos are having a relationship now. It's not it's not love, and it's not about the truth of who you are. So something might start off true, and then there is definite signs that, that person is not the right person for me. But other times it's not that the person's not right for you. It's just that we start to fall into these ego games, and we both start playing games with each other, and then it becomes not about that. But when you start to strip it all back, maybe something happens, like a wake-up call. Maybe the person gets sick, I don't know, and then you start to kind of go, oh shit, none of that stuff matters anymore. Like, I actually really do like this person, and I don't give a shit that they're messy anymore. I don't, like we've all probably had moments of that too in friendships. It doesn't have to be in a a romantic.
There are our parents that we've had grudges with all our lives, and then suddenly they're on their deathbed, and it's like, oh, none of that actually matters anymore. It's like, did it ever matter?
Yeah,
probably not.
So you got him said I played a part in the relationship, and that's a really key point too, because a lot of people leave relationships not owning any of the fact that they contributed to what's playing out for them, and then they'll stay in that really bitter, stuck place for ages too. So you've already been in the spiritual world, so you can already know that you've got a lot of self-awareness. So you've definitely got that on your side. That you can use that now, all the stuff that you've been learning, and to turn it back in on yourself. Now it's not about the outside world right now. It's about you reconnecting to you.
If I learned anything breaking up with my ex-husband, it was that everyone just wants to be loved for who they are, as they are. And he was an alcoholic and bipolar, and there was a lot of shit going on in our relationship. There was a lot more than that. And I had to get to the stage of going, you know what? It's not about me changing him. He's actually doing what he wants to do right now.
He's got
and who am I to judge that that's wrong for him? That's right for him right now. So it's up to me. I've got a choice whether I stay or I leave. And so I chose to leave. And I think that was the stage.
Like you giving it a really good go for 3 years to try and
definitely
rectify the
Yeah, it
situation and
didn't just
everything.
leave,
Yeah.
like it was many, many years, like a bit like this scenario,
Yeah.
of trying to make it work. And it was just, I just got to that stage and I thought, you know what, the most loving thing I can do right now for him and for me is to leave and let him be who he wants to be in life. And yeah, we were compatible for a while, but now we're not. I've moved on. So that was a really interesting sort of process to go through. And part of getting to that point of just loving him for who he is and not wanting him changed anymore was actually this balancing sort of exercise, that I took all the traits of the stuff that I was finding that I didn't like about him. And I was like, what are those real traits, the things that really grind me about this relationship, about him? And I would write those down. And then we would look at, like, what are the benefits of those things, those traits? Like, how has it served me that he's had those traits, and how has it changed me? How have I become more me and more strong because he's had those traits? And there was just like tons of them. When I really looked for them, I was like, holy shit, like he's really made me step up right now. And then I guess the flip side of that was finding those traits, and why do I have those traits? So they won't play up in the same areas as what he had them. But when I actually looked at all those traits that I wrote down that I didn't like in him, I was displaying every single one of those traits myself in different areas.
Form, maybe
and other people were seeing me have with those traits as well. And boy, was that humbling. It's like, it's a really interesting exercise to go through this. And this is something that Mandy and I have trained in, to go through this process many years ago. And it just, those few things, writing these things down, I think there is a power in writing it down, of how has it supported me that he's got, what are those traits that you don't like? How has it supported me that he's got those traits?
3 or 4 of them.
Yeah.
Go through that process.
Where do I have those same traits? Because when you can identify that in yourself, suddenly all of the bullshit and the emotion, all the different emotions you've got, suddenly will collapse on themselves. Because you've realized that he was you. At the end of the day, every single relationship, all the people we see outside of ourselves, partner, family, friends, work colleagues, whoever, are purely a reflection of our inner world. That's all they can be. So that's a hard pill to swallow, I get that. But it is about, and that exercise helps you see the reflection point. It's like, shit, he was me at the end of the day. And then you have a chance to look at your own stuff, those traits, and love them inside you. It's not about getting rid of those traits.
It's not about getting rid of them.
There's like 1,400 identified human traits, and we have every single one of them. Every one of us do. And you'll never get rid of them because it's part of the human game. So it's like, okay, how am I displaying those traits? And how can I love them in me? How are they helping me have my game here? And how do they help other people as well? So you're asking about, what about the lies, the horrible lies he's trying to push? Well, you've got to ask yourself, where have you lied? Sorry to be so blunt and a bit of tough love here, but you've been lying to yourself for the past 13 and a half years that you should stay in the relationship, and convincing yourself that that was a good move. So you've basically been lying to yourself, which is why him lying now is pushing your buttons so much.
It probably stirs up a lot of...
It stirs up your own stuff of where you're lying. And I'm not saying that was the lie. It might be something else, but...
It can be in the other forms too, because when you start to go into where do I lie, for example, lying can be like little white lies that you tell your kids. It can be, I lied to my boss about being sick and I wasn't, like, and they might seem really insignificant, maybe in comparison to one big lie that you're kind of balancing up against, but it's kind of like, it's more about you keep going till that process is exhausted and it brings it back into neutrality. It's the whole point of this purpose of this exercise, is to balance that positive and negative that Nat was talking about before. So if we've really got someone in the pit, the whole point of this exercise is to bring it back up to neutrality, where we kind of own our own part in this and our own, where we do those traits as well. And it's not to make us feel bad. It's definitely not about.
No.
By the end of the process, you actually feel completely neutral. You feel in a space of love, because you're kind of like, oh, wow, there's nothing that can happen to me that can hurt me. I'm doing all these things as well. So everybody's just themselves, like, I can just be me. They can just be me. we're all doing these things. Like there's just more of a sense of like understanding and love and appreciation, if you like, for everything that kind of goes on too. So it might feel really horrible that somebody's blatantly maybe making up a lie right now. Maybe that's the truth. Like maybe there is certain things that are being, alleged against you that you haven't done, in your heart you haven't done. What I would kind of sit with that too is like, what's that emotion that's being triggered within you by that? It's not about the details of the lie, if you like. It's not about,
it's not the story line that's playing.
Yeah, don't get caught in the story of like justifying, what went on and the thing that you did and how this wasn't true. Not talking about that at all. Sit with the actual emotion that is stirring up in you. So put yourself in a scenario, imagining this lie being kind of, directed at you. What's the emotion when you dig down in your body that you're feeling? Like maybe it's disappointment. I'm not sure, you mentioned before disappointment, so maybe that's the emotion. But
Disappointment
really,
in myself, she said.
Okay, disappointment. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So that's really valuable information, because most people don't go past that.
Yep.
They just react to the thing.
We get stuck in the story and we don't go
Yep.
deeper than that. So right now we're pushing
Yep.
you to go deeper. So this is actually a really good process. It's
Yep.
hard
Yep.
because you're going to have to dive into an emotion that feels really icky.
Yep.
But it's better than the looping stories, because if we don't go deeper, that story is just going to loop and loop and loop and loop, because that's what the mind does. So the only way to get out of that is to go underneath it, to what Mandy's talking about now.
He said, my friend said he would do this, but I said he would not do it to me. So that's interesting too. It's just like other people sometimes can see things that we can't see, and we don't listen to them. So again, maybe that was a little feather on the outside. It's like, hello, wake up a little bit. I'm going to send somebody into your life to kind of tell you, maybe have a look at this, and then you don't see it because we get blinded. We get blinded by the story. And
we want to believe the best in everybody and everything.
Yeah.
I get that.
It's a very it's like an inherent human trait that we want to give people the benefit of the doubt. Like it's like we love people at the end of the day. Like we feel connected to people, so we want to believe the best for them. Sometimes that doesn't happen that way, But again, that was like a feather. Yeah, like, hello, something here to look at, and maybe you didn't at the time, look at it, and then it compounded and go on. But again, back to that idea of the disappointment. This exercise is not around beating yourself up now because you should have seen signs. It's not about that at all.
You are where you are right now. So that's the first part of acceptance is, okay, we're here.
Yep. Yeah, just stating it as it is. This is what's happening.
That's cool.
This is how I'm feeling. That's fine too. Like it's not about beating yourself up now putting yourself into the pit.
Because at the end of the day, if you'd known better, you would have known better.
You would have done better. You would have done,
you would have done something different, but you didn't. So we're all exactly the same. You only have a certain level of consciousness that if it doesn't drop in strongly into your awareness that you should leave, and it's just sitting at that below the surface level, it's hard to see. And we go through this, all of us go through this, particularly when it's something that's important to us, like a marriage. Even though you are sort of not sure whether you should stay in the marriage or not, there is some level of commitment that comes with a marriage. And so through society and all the different beliefs we've held about marriage, then it does just slightly sit under the surface. And relationships are the hardest thing to see stuff in, because they're so personal to us.
Yeah.
And they
pour
the most heart.
Yeah. About ourselves, that's for sure.
They're the hard ones to see.
But I would say with that feeling of disappointment that you're identifying is if you didn't watch that video I did yesterday around the positive thinking, go back to that one, because I kind of go through that process of sitting with the emotion. But basically the idea behind it is sit in a quiet space where you're not going to get any distractions. Hopefully out in nature is always a good place, because it's a lot easier to be neutral when you're out in nature, because nature is just in a neutral space in general. So it kind of taps you into that feeling. But really focus on your breath, get quiet, spend some time just sort of emptying your mind as much as you can, and then really tune into that feeling of disappointment. And in the beginning, you might be labeling it as disappointment, like those words will be coming in, but try, as you go through that process of just sitting with it, really start to drop the stories away around what disappointment is and what that looks like dropping away the beating yourself up or the he said this, she said that, and sitting with the actual, just the pure energy noticing it in your body, of where it sits in your body. Maybe identify, where am I feeling it in my body? Is it in my chest? Is it in my stomach? Is it moving around? Is it in the one spot? Like, just getting really curious about the energy and where it sits. And then it is just creating space for that emotion to just be. So there's no judgment on it. There's no trying to get rid of it. There's no trying to make it better, change it into something else. It's just allowing it to be there in your body. And it might move around. It might intensify. A lot of times it might feel like it intensifies in your body. Try to sit with it as long as you can. If you really can't sit with it, and you may not be able to in the beginning, it may be too overwhelming, get up and go for a bit of a walk and move around, and then try it again a bit later on. And it's kind of, don't beat yourself up because you can't, sit with it either. It's watch where the mind gets a hold of these things and makes them into stories. But sit with their emotion as much as you can until it starts to dissipate and move out of your body. And you might need to do, particularly if it's a really strong emotion, you might need to do this process lots of times.
Yep.
And it will slowly get less and less and less. And then you'll notice things on the outside don't trigger you as much, because it's not bringing up that emotion anymore, because you've actually dealt with it. You've actually sat with it and given it space rather than pushing it away all the time.
Because right now it's running you. So you feel disappointment, so you react to it.
Yeah.
Whereas when you sit with this process Mandy's talking about, you start to realize that the disappointment almost is a ball of energy. So it sits somewhere in your physical form. And it's almost like you're isolating that emotion, that feeling. And then you start to realize, I'm not that feeling. It's an energy that sits inside my physical form right now, and I can feel it, but it's not actually who I am. No. So there's this sort of separation that happens between you and the emotion when you go through this process, and you go, oh, and you do become almost curious. It's like, oh, that's really interesting. And so it does intensify, and eventually it will dissipate because you've put so much attention on it. The energy will actually dissipate from it. So you've taken the power out of it. So it's almost like you've risen above that emotion now, so that when it comes up again, that level of disappointment, something, your ex-husband triggers something again, you almost go into that disappointment. When you've done this enough, you almost start to go into that disappointment, and then you go, I don't feel like anything now. And it's like literally like a nothingness.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, you've actually taken your power back out of that emotion of disappointment. So the story triggers the emotion. So it's never about the story. It's about what the emotion that the story triggers. So right now you're quite in the story. So a lot of the stuff that you're writing is very story orientated. So your next step would be to do exactly what Mandy's saying here, is start to pull out the emotions from that story. What are you feeling? What's really, really triggering you about your husband or the story itself? And start sitting with those emotions and giving yourself space to do that. This is by far going to be the fastest path for you to get back to peace, which is what you said you wanted. By doing that, your mind is going to balance back out and neutralize all these emotions that are going on. Fear is another one. 100%. Again, just go right into the fear, like dive straight into it. I actually go to the point of actually inviting it into my space. So I clear the space, might be sitting in nature or wherever I'm sitting. I just start to feel emptiness. So that is space at the end of the day. It's the nothingness. And then I invite it in. I go, I can feel you in there. I can feel the disappointment. I can feel the fear. And it's like, come into this space. You're welcome here right now. Yeah. Come on in. And so it will come in. You'll invite it in. It'll come in. You'll feel it. It'll get more intense, perhaps, and then start to dissipate again. And it will go. It will leave your physical face. You'll actually feel it leave. If you're tuned in enough, you'll feel it go.
Yeah. And it may take several times. As I said, it's a process. It's but by not doing it, by not addressing it, it's going to keep triggering you. It's going to keep showing up in all different forms. And even if you go through this whole divorce proceedings and everything gets sorted out, you'll still have some other part of life that will show up where it will bring up this feeling of disappointment in yourself. It will bring up, it will still happen. That's the thing, because we don't deal with the emotions. We're very much told to just push through things, don't deal with things, like get on with stuff, think positive, it's very much what we're told, and we're just denying, like, the gold sits in sitting with the emotion where the trigger points come from. And then you'll just get to the point where you start to have the awareness, like something will happen, and then maybe later on in reflection you kind of go, oh shit, I didn't actually react to that thing, and that was, nothing has changed on the outside. The story might look exactly the same, but you didn't even have a reaction from it anymore. And that's when you know you've kind of dealt with the emotion, you've given it the space, and it's left your sphere now. And that might take a year, like who knows how long. It doesn't matter how long that process takes at the end of the day, because each time you do it, you feel more and more yourself. You feel more and more peace within yourself, and it doesn't matter what's going on outside of you. So that's that whole idea of being the eye of the storm. It's got nothing to do with the outside stories going on. It's how you feel about you, your relationship to you. At the end of the day, that's what everything is about. So
yeah, when you do this enough, you realize that no outside story can affect you. You are the power, and you hold that regardless of what goes on in the outside world. Whoever comes into your space, whatever they do, whatever unfolds in front of you, you just go, okay,
yeah,
another experience. Cool, I'll step into it. Doesn't worry me. So there's no fear there. It's like you've surpassed all the emotions and all the stories, and you're on a whole other level playing the game. And that's where you get to really play the game of life, because the story is not affecting you anymore. You get to play with the story then. You get to decide how the story goes. So it is step by step through these processes to really start to move out of the stories themselves affecting us and taking our power back. You know, we're giving our power away. So somewhere in this storyline, you've given your power away to your husband, to the business, to the finances, whatever you've given it to, probably to him the most. And now you're learning how to take that back. And this is the process to take it back. The emotions that he triggers is the emotions that you can actually reclaim. And bit by bit, the power gets taken back out of him. So when he does something, it doesn't trigger you anymore. You go, I don't care that he just did that. So what? So he might not change what he does. He might still lie his ass off. And you go, actually, I'm totally unaffected by it. I really don't care. So this process is interesting because it's already happening naturally over time. So normally, if we didn't have this process happening naturally, we'd be so traumatized through our entire life because nothing's ever neutralizing itself. So over time, like you reflect on a past relationship you've had 20 years ago and what was really traumatic at the time when you broke up, now you look back and go, oh, I remember that guy. Yeah, that was actually really funny. Like we actually had some really good times together, and yeah, that's it. So the whole breakup thing that you went through that was really horrible actually is now completely neutralized. You're not even thinking about it. You think about the guy and how great it was. So it's sort of like it's happening through time anyway, but we're just speeding this process up.
Yes.
So that you can actually get it happening now.
Yeah. And I was going to, one thing I was going to suggest to you, and it sort of just confirmed actually, you wrote that comment, yep, he will, in response to he'll keep attacking you like that.
Lying.
Because I'm going to kind of challenge you on that, because the challenge I was going to give you, and this would apply to anybody, is to stop telling the story, stop repeating what's happening. And this will take some, I'm not saying this is going to be easy, it won't be easy. And you'll probably do it unconsciously without even being aware of it too. And you've got to pull yourself up on it, or do it in the, after the fact, kind of go, oh shit, I did it again. Okay, you've got more awareness around it, but stop telling people the story of what's happening. Like stop buying into all the stuff that's going on around you, like saying, oh, he did this and now he said that and this is not true.
And he'll do this again. And I know he will.
Yeah. So it's kind of like you're still buying into the identity that you think he's portraying right now. And that's still loaded with lots and lots of judgments right now.
And you're recreating the story because you keep telling it. Every time you tell that story to yourself or somebody else and you say he's going to do that again, guess what? He'll do that again because he can't. He doesn't have any other choice. You're creating the story.
There's no other energy around it. And the more that you keep repeating the story, whether it's to friends, whether it's to like just somebody that's taking your side of the story, if you like it's kind of, you keep perpetuating the energy around it, and you keep perpetuating the judgment around it. Yeah. So the more you can stop telling the story, and you'll pull yourself up, you'll go to start telling something and you might have to kind of stop yourself mid-sentence, like, no, I'm not going to do that. Like it will take some time to turn it around too. Like it's not going to be just the first time you do it, and you'll feel like you want to do it. Like you'll feel like, I just want to get this off my chest. Like your ego just so badly wants to be the drama queen and to be the victim and to be the, it's not who we truly are, but like it's just, it gets a hold of that. So I challenge you to not tell the story. as much as you can, stay out of the story, and then do the stuff that we've been just sharing about creating the space around the emotions, and then listing out the traits and balancing it out and seeing where you do it as well to the best that that you can do it.
Yep.
Anything is better than staying in the story, to be honest.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I was going to say about the stop telling the story too was, I was going to give you an example of how this can completely shift around. So I've got a coaching course I went through about 18 months ago. My mentor, it was a really small group, really high level, kind of very intimate and personal kind of journey. And one of the ladies on that, who was one of the facilitators on that, she had gone through a divorce about, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, could be a bit longer, really nasty kind of divorce. She's got 2 twin boys with this guy who are now sort of 15 years old, but really, really nasty. Like, he was really in his ego and kind of putting it all on her. And she just made a decision. She was doing a lot of self-awareness work. So and he hadn't been, so she kind of had some tools like up her sleeves, like you do. And she kind of just started to do the work and went, I'm taking responsibility for this. I'm shifting my vibration around this. Yep. I'm owning who I am in this situation. So every time he would throw stuff at her, she would not engage. She would not engage in the story at all. She would just kind of see him in the highest light and kind of go, that's interesting. I'm noticing the reaction with me. And then she'd do the work on the reaction, not on the story. Yep. And she did this for quite a few years. But she just noticed how over time he would still throw stuff at her. He would still write nasty emails. He'd still try to use the kids as manipulation. And she just would not buy into, and it used to aggravate the crap out of him.
It's always become quite fun.
Yeah, he was trying to, which is like what narcissists do too. They try to listen to a reaction from you. It's what they're trying to do. So if you don't engage the reaction that they want, they start to lose, they might intensify for a while. Really annoying the crap out of them that they can't get under your skin. But eventually it starts to shift and drop off. And even if it doesn't matter because it doesn't trigger you anymore. So she's now in this situation now where she has completely transformed that situation with her ex-husband. They're like best friends now.
Oh God, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're like absolute best friends.
Wow.
And they have the most amazing relationship with the kids, like, and they talk about the stuff that's doing with kids. And she's in another relationship now. She's about to get married again, and like they get on like a house on fire. Like, her new partner gets on with it. Like, it's completely shifted. And it's because she took the power back out of it. She took back who she was. She let him be who he was going to be. She didn't keep holding him into the story of she just knew it was a behavior pattern. It wasn't who he truly was. It's not him at the end of the day. It's an ego pattern that she was engaging all the time. It's not who he truly is. And so she just didn't engage in the story. She dropped the stories as much as she could. And she got caught in it at times. Like, of course, like we all do. You have a reaction, then you kind of go, oh, shit, I shouldn't have done that. Like, you used to have some reflection time. And it's like, fine, no problems. You don't beat yourself up about it. It's just awareness for next time that you don't buy into the story again, or this is what happens when I buy into the story. You deal with the emotions that come up, but you can shift something around, and you may not want to be best friends with the husband. I'm not saying it's about doing that either, but it's about not being triggered by it anymore, about taking the power back out of it.
Wow.
So it completely shifts around.
It's an amazing story.
Yes. Okay, I accept the challenge. Cool.
Accept the challenge. Definitely do this.
It'll be a journey for sure, but you can do it.
It will be. You can do it. You've never given anything that you can't handle. And there's no mistakes to being on this call either and receiving this information right now. So you've asked for this information that we're just reflecting back to you, your consciousness itself. Like, again, this is the relationship part. Whoever's talking to you in the outside world is you talking to you. So this is us talking to you. This is what you wanted to hear. So whatever you need to do with this information, then run with it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
you're welcome. You're welcome.
You are welcome. Very much so. I'm glad that I hope some of it helped. Definitely. And keep us posted about how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah. Ask questions if you need some more clarification on anything, or get stuck, and you probably will fall backwards at times too. It's not about getting it right every time, and it's kind of like, it's just but any part of self-reflection and self-awareness journey is better than not doing anything at all.
Well, you're always raising in vibration levels, I guess, or quantum levels sort of thing. Like, you never go backwards. Once you've
No.
got an awareness, you don't go back, but you might slip a little off to the side. So just remember that too. You're not going backwards at any time where you start to buy back into the story and he triggers you on something. It's just another thing to see. Like you're being presented right now. It's actually, you're almost in a perfect position right now to actually really do this work because you're being given so many things in front of you to deal with. It's almost a really good space to be in. If you look at it that way, because it's like, wow, I actually get to bust through a whole bunch of stuff at one time. Whereas the rest of us are sort of dribbling along type thing. Like every now and then we'll get something to deal with and reclaim the power from. You're getting a whole bunch of power back right now if you want to. So it's actually really good.
When you look at it from that perspective, actually, it's like all the power that's been put into all this other stuff, you're going to get that back plus probably tenfold. So it's kind of like sometimes it's actually, in hindsight, it's kind of cool to go through some big major things like this too, because the amount of power you take back out of it is just like astronomical.
Yeah, who you're going to be in
in
3 or 6 months' time, who you're going to be is completely different if you go through this process.
Yeah,
be like, you'd be on fire, like from going through this stuff. So you have a great opportunity right now. Look at it that way. Look at the support that he's actually given you, because if it wasn't for him right now, you wouldn't actually be able to take the power back from all this stuff right now. You wouldn't be seeing it. So he's making it so damn obvious to you about where your power is being hidden through all his lies and all the stuff that he's doing. It's so extreme. Sometimes it needs to be so extreme in the storyline from somebody else that we go, you know what? I'm not putting up with this anymore. This is how we feel. We put up with it, we put up with it, we put up with it until we eventually go, fuck this. I'm not putting up with this anymore. And then that's when we start to take our power back. But you can do it a lot more consciously as well about taking that power back through this process that we've been talking about. So everybody goes through this process. You'll push somebody to their limits and then they'll break and they'll go, you know what? And we start standing up for ourselves again. So you're getting to that point now of like, no, screw this. I'm not doing this anymore. So you've walked away. So you have actually started to find this power. Now you get to take it to the next level if you want. But he's actually giving you your power back by actually the shit that he's doing right now. He's actually presenting it to you on a silver platter if you want to take it. So to me,
that your perspective around on that every time something happens, kind of go, wow, what's the gift on this one?
Like, it's like, thank you. Yeah, I'll take that back. Good on you.
It's triggering me. Yeah.
Cheers. So to me, that if you do that enough, you'll get to the point of actually saying, thank you, I love you to him. Doesn't mean you want to be together.
No.
I didn't do that to my ex-husband. By any means, I certainly didn't want to be back with him. But there was a point where he had handed so much power back to me that I reclaimed, that I went, thank you, I love you, not to him directly, but just to myself. And that's all it needed to be, because I saw the gift that actually his behavior was giving me. So this is the chance you have right now. This is a really good spot for you to be in, believe it or not.
So I was going to say too, it's sort of a good reminder, I suppose, of the Infinite Living Guidance Program that Nat and I have put together, the 12-month program that's starting next week. It's if you're feeling any call to be a part of that, come and join us, because this is exactly the stuff we're going to jump into, is like helping you on the journey like this. So this is going to be a journey for you. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to shift overnight your whole situation, what's happening for you. But if you want some help and guidance along the way, like really personalized kind of jumping into things that are going on in the moment, then do consider kind of joining us for it, because that's exactly what the whole program is set up for, is for exactly this. So hands-on sort of help and guidance.
And when we get a group of us doing it, it's not individually as a group stuff, but we're doing it group for a reason, because we get to learn from each other. So anyone that watches this now, us going through this with you, Jenny, is hopefully going to get some insights themselves. Again, there's no mistakes to what comes into your sphere, and we're all reflections of each other. So when we get in a group situation, we're all going to be reflecting each other's consciousness, and so we really get to see some of the stuff that's going on for each other, and you'll see somebody else go through a process and go, holy shit, that's my stuff, in a different area of life perhaps, but it's exactly the same stuff, and you'll get insights for yourself. So it's really powerful.
It's kind of the fast track. I mean, because I've definitely gone on the journey too of doing everything on my own for many, many years. And yes,
Me too.
you still still get somewhere. As Nat said, you can't go backwards, even though sometimes it looks like you're going backwards. You can never actually ever go backwards. It's sort of, you're always expanding out your awareness and your insights. And, even if it looks like a whole bunch of crap hits you in the face, it's actually there to wake you up. You're not at the same level of consciousness that you were, 5 years ago now. Everyone shifts. Even if you don't do any consciousness work, everybody shifts with who they are and the way they think and all those type of things. But for me, I wanted the fast track. I wanted to kind of just know who I truly was and get in touch with that so I could use that to live my best life. And so that's why we've put together the program, is exactly for that reason too. It's just like, yeah, I could do it on my own, but what if I had some help along the way to kind of see my blind spots and sort of give me some guidance and give me some more clarity around things, so I can kind of start to do it for myself. And I start to connect into myself a lot. And it is always about your own wisdom too. It's not about Nat and I having the answers. It's just about having some tools that we can kind of help you with, or being unattached to, that's probably the big part too, is that non-judgmental unattachment to the outcome of anything that you probably won't get from most people around you, because they're invested in your story on some level, and so their viewpoint is going to be tainted by the knowing of who you are and your personality and who the other person is and their history with you, and all those kind of things come into play. All that unconscious levels, of course, everyone means the best, but unfortunately it's still tainted with expectations and stories and everything else as well. So, so do give it some consideration. But that goes for anybody, actually. Like, it's just, if you want some help to live your best life in the fastest way possible, give it some consideration. Yeah,
definitely. How are you feeling, Jenny? A lady on Tuesday has crawled back from a complete emotional blackout for 2 years. Yeah, it's interesting. Does it need to take 2 years? I don't know.
No, it doesn't necessarily.
But you need to have complete emotional blackout. In some ways, we're actually wanting to move you into complete emotional awakening.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that it's not about a blackout. It's not about pushing those emotions down. It's actually about stepping into them for the first time, perhaps.
Yeah.
Very, very tired. That's your ego. Very, very tired. That's a good place to be. The ego's had enough for a while. So this is a point of surrender. It's good when you get really, really tired like this.
Yeah. So you see how much energy it takes to keep the stories going.
That's a lot of energy to hold them in place. Yep. And they're all illusions at the end of the day. At the end of the day, the stories are all made up in your head. I'm not saying that they're not happening in front of you. They are. But your perception of what's happening in front of you will be vastly different to what is actually happening in front of you.
At that infinite level, that infinite consciousness level.
Yeah.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Well, we'll call it a wrap, hey?
I think so.
Thanks for being here, Jenny, and for sharing and allowing us to share part of your story and going through this process. And hopefully people that watch this get something from it. And you help other people. So there's another thing, part of your story, that you'll be helping other people by going through your story right now and sharing that. So that's really cool.
Not the I can already think of a couple of other people that are going through exactly what you're going through right now, where it feels like everything is falling apart. And so you're not alone, definitely. I've been through that too. Nat's been through this. So I'm sure if you talk to every second person on the street, they've gone through actually something very similar, where their whole life feels like they're falling apart. It seems to be a common part of the journey, where we need a wake-up call sometimes.
But it's what you do from here.
Yes.
And you have options right now about what you do from here.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Well, big hugs, lots of love, Jen. And we're here if you need us. Okay, cool. All right. Thank you, everyone. And we'll catch you again.
We're going to be doing another call, another one like this on Monday. That's right there. Coming Monday. 2 p.m. Eastern time, so different time zone, so that we'll hopefully catch some of the European people, because this one was right in the middle of the night for them. So yes, so 2 p.m. Eastern, which is really early in the morning for Australian time, but it's at afternoon, evening for European time. So hopefully we'll catch a couple of other people's.
Yeah. Very cool.
Thanks for joining, everyone.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Yeah.